Namaskar. Hello, friends. We will continue in the chapter 2 of Gita with the next lot of verses. Today, now we are starting with verses 37 and 38 of chapter 2. Hato va prapsyasi swargam jitva va mokshase mahim tasmad tishth kaunteya yuddhaya krutanishchayah sukha dukkhe same krutva labha labhau jaya jayau tato yuddhaya yujjasva naivam papamavapsyasi. Literal meaning of these verses is as follows. If you die in the war, you will go to heaven, or if you emerge victorious, you will enjoy the kingdom of the earth. So, O Arjuna, determine to fight the war and rise. You should treat happiness, unhappiness, gain, loss, victory and defeat all as equal. Then you will never land in sin. My practical insight. One must act in accordance with his swadharma, come what may. Whatever happens in future is immaterial in that regard. For that, we have to transcend the dualities like happiness, unhappiness. We should stop being judgmental and avoid labeling things as desirable or undesirable, right or wrong. We should simply accept whatever happens after we have performed in accordance with our swadharma. Then we will never incur sin, irrespective of what we really did by way of swadharma. For example, an executioner's job is to hang a person duly convicted to death by hanging. So the executioner must do his job as swadharma without bothering about the principle that killing is wrong and sinful. He will not incur sin since he is performing in accordance with his swadharma. Now verses 39 and 40 of chapter 2. Esha te abhihita sankhye buddhir yoge tvimam shrunu buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahasyasi neha bhikramanashah asti pratyavayo na vidyate svalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Literal meaning. O Arjuna, I have told you so far about Sankhya knowledge, that is spiritual knowledge. Now I will tell you about Buddhi Yoga knowledge, which removes the bondage with karma. In this Buddhi Yoga, if the karma that has been started stops, the karma that has happened until then does not get destroyed, and it is not beset by any obstacles or difficulties. And even if this dharma is followed to just a little extent, it protects the person from serious fear. Practical insight. If one follows Buddhi Yoga, which is commonly called as Karma Yoga, in its true spirit, he will be free from fear. The crux of Karma Yoga is performing one's duties without bothering about the outcome. That essentially means that one is not harboring any desires. If one can manage it, one will be liberated from the repeated cycles of birth and death, because it is the unfulfilled desires at the time of death that make one come back to this world with another body for the next life. It is the desire for the outcome of action that creates a binding cause-effect relationship between action and fruit. So, doing one's duty, that is karma, without any desire for fruit thereof, means that one is not associating or tying the karma with fruit. That is what can be described as karma not binding. If one desires a particular fruit of his action, it is also natural that one will also harbor a fear or anxiety that his actions may not bear the desired fruit. However, if no desire for success exists, fear of failure also is out of question. It is also described elsewhere as sowing roasted seeds that cannot sprout. This is one of the most fundamental and important concepts in the Gita and is elaborated further in the subsequent verses. Now, verse 21 of chapter 2. Vyavasayatmika buddhi ikeha kurunandana bahusakha hi anantascha buddhayah avyavasayinam. Literal meaning: O Arjuna, there is only one kind of thinking that is sure of itself, while those who are unsure of themselves indulge in infinite different ways of thinking. Practical insight: if one is engrossed completely in worldly thinking and is having his sight fixed on getting some worldly desire fulfilled, he will see many different ways of achieving his objective and end up getting confused. However, if one is established in God consciousness and is not driven by any worldly desire, then he will not be bothered about the outcome of his action. In such a case, his actions will be driven by the divine will, and then there will be only one course of action for him without any confusion. Verses 45 and 46 of chapter 2. Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvo Nitya Satvastho Niryogakshema Atmavan Yavanartha Udapane Sarvatah Samplutodake Tavan Sarveshu Vedeshu Brahmanasya Vijanataha. Literal meaning: O Arjuna, Vedas talk only about the three gunas, namely satwa, rajas and tamas. So you should transcend these three gunas, give up this dichotomy like me and mine. Always remain firmly established in pure satva guna. Don't worry about how you will earn your living and keep your mind focused on your true self. The tasks that can be performed with difficulty in a limited quantity of water can be performed very easily in a large water body. Likewise, the fruit that is obtained after a great effort, as prescribed in the Vedas, is easily available to a Brahmagnani, that is self-realized person. Practical insight: there is a lot of worldly knowledge in Vedas centered around the three gunas, namely satwa, rajas and tamas, which are the fundamental constituents that living beings are made up of. But a true spiritual seeker needs to transcend it and focus on only that part which leads one to self-realization. For that, the seeker has to give up rajas and tamas because they are totally submerged in the worldly affairs. Vedas lay a great emphasis on yagas and such rituals that are intended to please lesser gods who are responsible for the sustenance of this creation. But that is not important for a true spiritual seeker who is disinterested in worldly life and who is desirous of self-realization, realizing his true identity, which is pure spirit. Sattva guna is like a bridge between the worldly and spiritual because it is oriented towards spiritual. So Lord Krishna exhorts us to give up our active interest in our worldly life and engage in satvic activities that are focused on the spirit or our real self. That is the key to spiritual pursuit. Lord indicates that performing all kinds of yagas also will ultimately lead to the final spiritual goal of self-realization. but they are too strenuous and elaborate, requiring a lot of effort and resources. On the contrary, he says that the same goal can be much more easily attained through pursuit of satvic activities. Verse 47 of chapter 2. कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भूर्मा ते संगोस्तु अकर्मणि. Literal meaning: O Arjuna, you have a right only to performing karma. Don't ever think you have a right to the fruit of your action. Don't even desire the fruit of your action, and don't be attached to not performing karma either. Practical insight. This is one of the verses that can be regarded as truly golden in the Gita. It gives the gist of a spiritual way of life. We should act as required in a given situation, keeping in mind that we don't have a right to a particular outcome of our actions that we may be expecting. This philosophy is questioned by many because they feel that without fruit there won't be any motivation for action. This understanding is not correct. The correct way to understand it is to look at a possible fruit as only something to give a direction to our course of action, to get a kind of a roadmap. But once that part is decided, we should not anymore be attached to the expected fruit. There is a practical rationale for this. We know very well that only trivial actions like, say, moving our hand to pick up a book from the table can lead to the expected outcome with almost total certainty. However, more often than not, the scenario is not as trivial. Then the action that we take may or may not bring about the expected outcome, because there are many other action contributors to the eventual fruit. Also, all the factors that will impact the outcome may not be known to us, making it that much more difficult for us to figure out the correct action required on our part. All this makes the outcome very uncertain in relatively complex situations. That is why this verse exhorts us to not bother about the fruit of our action. The second part of this verse takes it further and says that our action should not be for the purpose of getting its fruit. In other words, action on our part should be for its own sake, accepting whatever outcome that may actually materialize. In this regard, it helps to use the word consequences rather than fruit of our action. Fruit indicates something that is for one's enjoyment, and hence it generates a desire. However, consequence means just something that happens after action, and it is not necessarily for the enjoyment of the person performing that action. One is forced to experience the consequence in one's own way. This kind of thinking helps remove the unnecessary passion behind action. The third part says that we should not avoid action. The exhortation that we have no right to the fruit of our action should not lead us to lose interest in action. The philosophy behind this is that life is a sequence of actions, and the experience that come our way are only a byproduct to be accepted in a witness mode rather than being judgmental about them. It is also another way of saying that we should transcend desires. If we stop taking action, the whole drama of creation will come to a halt. I will stop here today and continue the next time. Until then, bye. Take care.